wind carried dust across the station yard, whispering like dry bones over the rails. It was a kind of afternoon when time seemed to hold its breath, when even the crows refused to call. Elias Crow stood alone by the platform, hat low over his brow, boots rooted in the sunburnt earth. The letter in his pocket had worn soft from reading. The ink faded from his thumb, tracing the same line night after night. I will come on the 23rd train of May. He had built the house, fixed the fences, even set an extra plate at the table. For months, the thought of that letter had kept him company in a house too quiet and nights too long. Now, the whistle echoed across the valley, a low, lonely sound. He straightened, his hand brushing the dust from his coat. The train came groaning into station, black smoke curling above the roofs, iron wheels screaming against the rails, faces pressed to windows, travelers leaning out, and a conductor shouting names. Elias' heart knocked once, hard. He searched each door as it opened. Then she stepped down, not the woman he'd imagined from the letter, not the soft-faced girl with pale gloves he had pictured through winter nights. This woman was older, worn by the sun and years, her dress patched but clean, and behind her, like little shadows clinging to her skirts, came 5 children. The smallest clutched a rag doll. The tallest, a boy maybe 12, carried a sack bigger than himself. Their eyes searched the crowd like stray dogs waiting to be turned away again. The woman lifted her gaze, dark eyes meeting Elias beneath the brim of his hat. For a long second, no one moved. Then she swallowed hard, adjusted her shawl, and said softly, "Mr. Crow?" Elias didn't answer right away. His breath caught somewhere between disbelief and pity. He had been ready for a bride, not for a family. "Yes, ma'am," he managed. His voice came out rough. "That's me." She nodded, as if bracing herself. "I'm sorry. My sister, Clara, she was the one who wrote to you." His brow furrowed. "Your sister?" "She passed 2 weeks ago. Fever." The woman's hands twisted the hem of her skirt. "Before she died, she made me promise I'd still come. She said you were kind, said you'd take care of us." A silence fell heavy between them. Elias looked at the children again. Dusty faces, eyes too old for their age. The eldest boy stepped forward, chin lifted in quiet defiance. "We can work," he said. "We don't need charity." Something in that voice, in that pride, struck Elias deep. He saw himself in that boy, a soul that had learned too soon the cost of being left behind. He nodded slowly. "You all hungry?" The little ones perked up at the word, eyes brightening. The woman blinked, as if surprised he hadn't sent them away already. "We are," she admitted. "Then let's get you home," Elias said. He picked up one of their bags, heavier than it looked, and motioned toward the wagon hitched by the post. The eldest girl whispered to her mother, "Is he mad, Mama?" The woman, widow, he realized, only shook her head. "No, child," she murmured, "just tired." The wagon rolled slow through the plains, the sun bleeding red across the sky. The children sat in the back, quiet except for the soft hum of a lullaby one of the girls sang under her breath. The widow sat beside Elias, hands folded tight in her lap. "Name's Elias Crow," he said after a long silence. "Mary," she answered. "Mary Harlow." "Harlow," he repeated. "From Kansas." She nodded, until the drought took it, then the sickness. The reins creaked in his hands. "I'm sorry." Mary gave a small, weary smile. "I've had enough of sorries, Mr. Crow. The good Lord gives what he gives." Elias nodded, though his chest tightened. "You don't owe me anything. I didn't expect." "I know." She didn't look at him. "If you want us gone by morning, just say it plain. I can find work somewhere. There's always laundry kitchens." He stopped her there. "I didn't say that." Mary turned her head, eyes searching him again. "You can stay," he said quietly. "For now." She exhaled, not quite relief, not yet trust, just a breath of someone who hadn't had much mercy in a while. The boy in back stirred. "Ma, is this our new place?" Mary hesitated. "For now, son." They reached the ranch as dusk deepened. The house stood wide and lonely against the open sky. White boards faded gray, Roof patched with tin, a single light flickering in the window. Elias climbed down, helped the children one by one. The littlest girl, no more than 3, clung to his coat when he lifted her. Her small hands left dust marks on his shirt. He didn't mind. Inside, the air smelled of pine and old smoke. The table was set for 2, but Elias wordlessly fetched more plates. The children's eyes followed him, cautious, uncertain. Mary tried to stop him. "Please, Mr. Crow, we can eat outside." "Nonsense," he said. "Ain't no law says kids can't sit at a table." She froze and slowly sat. The meal was plain: beans, cornbread, and coffee for him, milk for the children. But they ate like they hadn't seen food in days. The boy, Caleb, he learned later, made sure the younger ones got their share first. Mary watched them all with that tired tenderness of someone who'd fought every battle life could throw. When the plates were empty and the little ones had nodded off by the fire, Elias leaned back in his chair. "You can take the upstairs room. It's got 2 beds. I'll sleep in the barn." Mary looked startled. "You don't have to." "I do," he said simply, "till we figure things out." She looked at him for a long time then, as if seeing a man she hadn't believed still existed in the world. "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded once, then went out into the night. The stars were bright and cold above the barn roof. Elias leaned against the post, listening to the crickets, to the faint laughter of children through the window. He couldn't sleep. He thought of the letter again, of the woman who'd promised a new life, and the stranger who'd stepped off the wagon instead. Maybe this was the same promise, just not the one he expected. He pulled his coat tighter and looked toward the house. Inside, a lamp flickered out, one room at peace. Morning came slow and golden. The sound of pots clanging woke him, children's voices, a dog barking. When he walked inside, he found the kitchen alive for the first time in years. Mary was at the stove, apron tied crooked, hair loose from its pins. The smell of biscuits filled the air. Caleb was chopping wood outside. The little ones chased each other through the yard. It was chaos and life. Mary looked over her shoulder as Elias entered. "I hope you don't mind," she said quickly. "I thought we'd earn our keep with breakfast." He looked at the biscuits, at the warm table, then at her. "Mind? No, ma'am. Feels right." A smile, small, real, touched her face for the first time. Later, he showed the boys the barn, the animals, the work that needed doing. Caleb listened closely, quick to learn. The younger ones played in the hay, their laughter echoing through the rafters. It wasn't long before the ranch felt different. The air wasn't empty anymore. The wind didn't sound so lonely through the fence posts. That night, as Elias sat on the porch, Mary came out with 2 mugs of coffee. "You work hard," she said, handing him one. "So do you," he replied. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun sink behind the hills. Mary spoke first. "I don't know what you expected when you sent for a wife, Mr. Crow." He looked at her, the firelight catching in her hair. "Didn't expect peace." The rain began before dawn, soft at first, then sharp as needles on the tin roof. Elias woke to the sound of it drumming steady across the valley, the kind of rain that carried the scent of mud and life and something long forgotten. He sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee gone lukewarm, watching through the window as gray light broke over the hills. The ranch was alive now. Boots by the door, a child's doll on the counter, laughter that sometimes broke through the quiet like sunshine through clouds. He wasn't used to it, not yet, but he couldn't deny the warmth it brought. Mary moved quietly around the stove, her shawl draped over her shoulders. "Storm will keep you from the fields," she said, without looking up. "Reckon it will," Elias answered. The children trickled in, sleepy-eyed, tousled-haired, and the kitchen filled with the smell of biscuits again. He couldn't remember the last time the house had smelled like food in the morning. When the meal was done, the younger ones ran to the porch to watch the rain pour. Caleb lingered, studying Elias with the watchful eyes of a boy who'd had to grow too old too soon. "Sir," he said, "I fixed that gate hinge yesterday like you showed me." Elias nodded. "Good work. Holds tight, like it's new." Caleb's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but pride was there. Mary turned, caught her son's look, and for a moment her eyes shone with quiet gratitude. Elias saw it, felt it, but said nothing. The storm lasted 3 days. By the second, the creek had swollen near the barn, threatening to spill into the pens. Elias worked through the rain, soaked through, boots sinking deep in mud. Caleb followed him, refusing to stay inside. "You'll catch cold," Elias warned. "I'm not leaving you out here alone," the boy said, stubborn as stone. Elias didn't argue after that. He saw something of himself in the boy, that same grit that wouldn't bend, even to weather or loss. When the work was done, they stood side by side beneath the eaves, dripping, the world a blur of silver water and wind. Caleb spoke first. "You think Ma's happy here?" Elias looked toward the house, the faint glow of a lamp behind the window. "I hope so." The boy nodded slowly. "She deserves to be." He didn't have an answer to that. By the time the clouds cleared, spring had broken wide across the land. The fields glistened. The air smelled of wet sage and sunlight. The children chased each other through the grass, while Mary hung clothes to dry. Elias watched from the fence, the scene almost too peaceful to be real. But peace never lasts long on a frontier. The next week, trouble came in the form of a black carriage and a man in a gray coat, the county judge, flanked by a deputy. Elias was mending the fence when they rode up, dust rising behind their wheels. Mary froze at the sight. The judge tipped his hat. "Mr. Crow," he called. "Mind if I have a word?" Elias wiped his hands on his trousers. "What's this about?" "About your new guests," the judge said, glancing toward the house where the children stood peeking from the porch. "Word in town is you sent for a mail-order bride, but the woman who arrived wasn't the one who answered." Elias's jaw tightened. "That true enough, but she's here now." The judge frowned. "You know the law, Crow. A widow and her children can't claim a man's home without contract or kinship. Folks are asking questions." "Then tell those folks to mind their own fences," Elias said flatly. The deputy shifted uneasily. "Judges just saying what's proper, sir. A woman like that." Elias turned on him, eyes cold. "Finish that sentence, son." The deputy didn't. Mary stepped forward, voice steady though her hands trembled. "Judge, I never meant to deceive anyone. My sister's death came sudden. I only came because I had nowhere else with children." The judge sighed. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but if you've no papers, no marriage, you'll need to leave by week's end. Law's the law." He tipped his hat again and rode off. The silence that followed was heavy as stone. Caleb looked at Elias, fists clenched. "We'll go," he said. "You don't owe us." Elias didn't answer. He just turned and walked toward the barn. Mary watched him go, her heart twisting. That night, the house was quiet. The children slept in a pile of blankets. Mary sat by the window, the letter from Clara folded in her lap, the one she'd found in her sister's chest after she died. She read the words again by the glow of the lantern. "He's a good man, Mary. If anything happens to me, promise me you'll go to him. He won't turn you away." Tears blurred the ink. Outside, she saw a lantern flicker in the barn. Elias was still awake, working the horses like he couldn't bear the thought of stopping. Mary rose, wrapped her shawl around her shoulders, and stepped into the night. He didn't hear her approach at first, just the creak of the stall door, the smell of hay and sweat. "Mr. Crow," she said softly. Elias looked up, tired eyes meeting hers. "Couldn't sleep?" "Neither could you." He wiped his hands, leaned against the post. "Can't stand the thought of you, and the young ones being pushed out again." Mary's voice broke slightly. "It's not your burden." "Maybe not," he said, "but I reckon it's my choice." He looked down, thumb tracing the grain of the wood. "You didn't lie to me, Mary. Life just turned different than we both planned." She swallowed. The judge was right, though. "I'm no wife to you." Elias met her gaze, quiet and sure. "Maybe not yet." The air between them stilled. Rainwater dripped from the rafters, a soft, steady sound. "I ain't asking for charity," she whispered. "And I ain't offering it," he said. "I'm a skin if you'll stay, not out of duty, but because you want to." Mary's breath caught. Her heart pounded so loud she thought he might hear it. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she nodded once slow. "I'll stay," she said. The next morning, Elias rode into town. By noon, the papers were signed. By sundown, a preacher from a valley stood on the porch with a Bible in his hand. The wedding was simple, the children as witnesses, wildflowers in Mary's hair. When the preacher asked if he took her as his wife, Elias said, "With all I am." And when Mary answered, her voice trembled but didn't break, "With all I have left." The children clapped, laughing through tears. Even Caleb smiled. As the preacher left, Elias stood beside her, watching the sky turn gold. "You sure about this?" he asked softly. Mary looked at him, eyes bright. "I was sure the moment you didn't send us away." Summer came fast after that. The fields grew green, the air thick with grass and sun. The children ran barefoot through the pasture, their laughter spilling across the land. Caleb helped Elias mend fences. The girls planted a garden, and Mary turned the coal house into a home. Curtains at the windows, a quilt on every bed. At night, she'd sit beside Elias on the porch, coffee in hand, the stars above burning endless and kind. Sometimes she'd ask, "You ever wonder what she was like, the woman who wrote you first?" Elias would smile faintly. "I used to, not anymore." Mary would look away, hiding her own smile.